Hello, everybody. Thank you for joining today. We are going to be talking about supporting autistic students without encouraging masking. I have included a handout with some resources on it with a lot more information. Today I will only be touching on this topic. So if you would like a copy of that emailed to you, please you can reach out to me directly at cynthia@kidsability.ky, or you can reach out to Jennifer at info@kidsability.ky, and we can send that over to you. My name is Cynthia Rowe. I am a speech language pathologist at Kidsability, and I'm also the clinical supervisor. The agenda for today, we are going to talk, first we're going to start by defining stimming and also play, because those are two areas that I think autistic children are encouraged to mask. We're also going to define what masking is. We will recognize how we may be unintentionally encouraging masking. We will also talk about the long-term effects of masking, the double empathy problem, and how to support authentic regulation and connection. This is a disclaimer. This presentation is not intended to offer medical advice and should not be relied upon as a substitute for professional consultation with a qualified healthcare professional familiar with your individual medical needs. Okay, so let's start out by talking about what is stimming. Stimming is also known as stereotypic behavior or self-stimulatory behavior. Stimming serves as a means for autistic people to manage their sensory input and adapt to the often overwhelming sensory world that surrounds them. Some stimming examples, this is not an exhaustive list. There are many more things that can be in this category, but some common ones are vocal stimming, which could be singing, humming, repeating words and phrases, can also be known as echolalia. Arm flapping or hand flapping, finger flicking, rocking, jumping, spinning or twirling, head banging, repetitive use of an object such as flicking a rubber band or a piece of string, or repetitive activities such as feeling certain textures over and over again. While most people stim in subtle ways, like all of us do, we might be, tapping our foot and bouncing our knee. We might be biting on a pen lid. These are also stimming. Autistic stimming is more extreme because it differs from stimming by neurotypical individuals in terms of the type, the quantity, and the obviousness of the behavior. So autistic people may stim for the following reasons. Again, this might not be an exhaustive list. There might be way more reasons, but these are some of the most common reasons. The first one is a form of enjoyment, just because they really enjoy it. And the second one, an attempt to gain sensory input. For example, rocking may be a way to stimulate the vestibular or balance system, whereas hand flapping may provide visual stimulation. Could be an attempt to reduce sensory input. So making one sound, the autistic student might be making one sound to reduce the impact of a loud, distressing environment. So think about like when you're in an assembly and there's a lot of classes around and it's quite loud in the assembly hall, or fire drills. Fire drills are quite loud, so they might, make their own noise to help reduce that. Another one is lunchtime. If everybody's having lunch in the cafeteria or in the lunch hall, it can be quite loud and overwhelming. Another reason is to deal with stress and anxiety. Another one is for coping with other strong emotions such as fear, anger, excitement, and anticipation. Another one might be to manage strong sensations such as noise, light, and heat. And another one is they are understimulated in terms of a place not having enough sensory input. And then to self-regulate. And then the last one is to help them concentrate on challenging or boring tasks. All right, now let's talk about play. Autistic play, excuse me. Autistic play refers to the natural, self-directed ways autistic children explore, learn, and interact with their environment. It might look different from neurotypical play, but it is meaningful, purposeful, and regulating for the autistic person. Autistic play often includes repetitive or pattern-based play, such as lining up objects, sorting objects by color, size, or texture, spinning, stacking, or arranging items in sequences. These patterns help with prediction, comfort, and mastery. Another example of play is sensory-based play, such as watching water flow, sometimes from the tap or sometimes in a water station, feeling different textures, swinging, bouncing, jumping, playing with light and shadows, and uh, and movement. This type of play supports regulation and helps organize the nervous system. The third type of play I have listed is object-focused or detail-focused play, such as exploring the wheels of a toy car, like spinning them around and around and watching them, rather than pretending to drive it, taking apart objects to understand how they work, observing small details that others might overlook. This reflects deep curiosity and a different, not lesser, play lens. The fourth one on the list is parallel play that isn't antisocial. Autistic play, autistic kids may prefer playing next to rather than with others, and this can be socially fulfilling for them. Connection doesn't always require conversation or shared pretend play. Number 5 on the list is specialized or passion-focused play. So this could be intense interests in things like trains, animals, numbers, letters, maps, planets, or anything really. This or creating systems or collections, reenacting specific scenes or routines can also be a part of this. These interests can bring immense joy and also a lot of knowledge. Okay, now that we've talked about play and stimming, let's talk about what is masking. Masking, another word for it is camouflaging, is when autistic individuals consciously or unconsciously hide or suppress their natural behaviors, needs, and communication style to fit societal expectations. Some examples of masking in children are forcing eye contact or smiling even when they are uncomfortable, copying peers' body language or speech patterns, suppressing behaviors such as echolalia or rocking, using social scripts, and then I have etc. because there are more. Excuse me. Why do children mask? Several reasons. On the list I have is a desire to fit in, to avoid punishment, especially if they have been punished in the past for some of these behaviors. They will then learn to mask to avoid getting punished. Another one is to please adults because, again, they have learned from behaviors in the past or from what they've done in the past that masking leads to adults being pleased with their behavior. And the last one is that they have learned that their authentic behavior is wrong. So I have a question that I'm going to propose that you take a minute to just sit with it and think about it. Throughout the presentation, I actually have a few different questions that I want you to just think about as we go along. So this is the first question I have for you guys to think about. What are some behaviors you've seen in students that might actually be masking rather than coping? Okay, so think about that. Maybe jot down some of your answers. And now we're going to go into the cost of masking. Research indicates that experiences of masking could relate negatively to mental health for a number of reasons. The most concerning is the high prevalence of mental health conditions for autistic people, such as depression, anxiety, social anxiety, suicidal behavior, and ideation. All right, so let's go through some of these that were found in several studies. So one study found that 79% of autistic adults had diagnosable mental health conditions. That's from Lieber and Gertz, 2016. In Hull et al.'s 2017 qualitative study examining autistic adults' experiences, participants explained how camouflaging was both physically and mentally exhausting. Participants in this study also reported feeling anxious and stressed after camouflaging and as though they were not being their true selves. In another qualitative study, Bargiola et al. In 2016 interviewed late diagnosed autistic women and also noted this feeling of exhaustion and camouflaging and the negative impact on identity. In a quantitative study, Cage et al. In 2018 found that participants who spontaneously reported camouflaging showed greater symptoms of depression and felt less accepted by others. Camouflaging has also been found to be a risk marker for suicidality in autistic adults, and that was from Cassidy et al. In 2018. These studies suggest that the effort of masking is costly for well-being and potentially has negative consequences for psychological constructions like identity. I have a couple quotes here that I wanted to highlight. I'm just going to read the first one from Devin Price, from his book, Unmasking Autism. When an autistic person is not given resources or access to self-knowledge, and when they're told their stigmatized traits are just signs that they are disruptive, overly sensitive, or annoying kid, they have no choice but to develop a neurotypical facade. Maintaining that neurotypical mask feels deeply inauthentic, and it's extremely exhausting to maintain. And the next quote is from an anonymous autistic poster on Raspergirls, an autistic-led forum. Masking is pretending to be someone else. It's becoming someone you think/have been taught people will like or dislike. I just want to highlight here that masking is a trauma response, and it's not a skill. It's not a skill that we want to teach. It's not a skill that we want autistic people to develop. All right, so now we're going to move into the double empathy problem. Most non-autistic people think of autistic people as lacking empathy and having impaired theory of mind, which is understanding another person's state of mind. The diagnostic criteria for autism include reduced sharing of interests, emotions, or affect, and an absence of interest in peers. This perspective means that non-autistic people often view autism as a defect. The double empathy problem is a concept that was introduced by Dr. Damian Milton in 2012. Dr. Milton is an autistic academic and father. He proposes a different interpretation for the disconnection between autistic and non-autistic people, which he calls the double empathy problem. Dr. Damian Milton's theory of double empathy proposes that autistic people do not lack empathy. He argues that autistic people experience the world and express emotions differently from non-autistic people. And then there's a quote from him which says, "We communicate, experience, and display emotions, interact with others, form relationships, and sense the world around us differently from non-autistics. That doesn't mean that we don't have emotions or feel empathy, but it makes it difficult for non-autistic people to understand and to empathize with us, and us with them." All right, continuing with the double empathy problem. So autistic differences lead to different life experiences, which create a kind of empathy divide. Just as it could be said that autistic people lack social insight into non-autistic culture and communication, it could also be said that non-autistic people lack social insight into autistic culture and communication. Milton calls this disconnect a double problem because both autistic and non-autistic people experience a lack of understanding of the other group. So in other words, empathy is a two-way street. And now I have this graphic that I want to show, which demonstrates the double empathy problem. So on the left, we have an autistic person, and he's saying, I may struggle to communicate with neurotypical people. I may have successful social interactions with other autistic people. I may feel pressure to mask or pass as neurotypical. I may feel socially isolated in neurotypical settings. And then on the right-hand side, well, it's my right-hand side. Sorry, I don't know if it is for you. On my right-hand side, I have a neurotypical person. So they are saying, I may frequently misinterpret communication of autistic people. I may have successful social interactions with other neurotypical people. I may assume that autistic people lack social skills. And I may benefit from a society that rewards neurotypical social skills. All right. So social, and on the bottom here it says social interactions are bi-directional. Understanding another neurotype's social interactions is not, in capital letters, is not just the responsibility of autistic people. Okay. Now I have another question for you to think about. What changes when we stop seeing autistic communication and behavior as wrong and start viewing it as different? Okay, maybe think about that for a minute. Jot down some notes. Okay. Now let's talk about how we might be encouraging masking. All right, so I've just listed some common but unhelpful practices. Again, this is not an exhaustive list. There is probably more out there. The first one I have listed is rewarding, in quotes, quiet hands or good sitting. The next one is using a token system for quote unquote expected behaviors without understanding there might be sensory needs behind that. And I do have a video that I'm going to show on the next slide that will show this. Expecting forced eye contact, expecting participation in group play, discouraging stimming, discouraging solitary breaks, and expecting the same behavior across all environments. So like say in a quiet one-to-one setting, in a quiet classroom setting, in a loud classroom setting, in a loud cafeteria or an assembly, when there's a fire drill happening. These are all different environments. So we can't assume the same or expect the same behavior. All right, I'm going to go to the next slide. I think it's going to play the video as soon as I go there. After I play the video, I will read the caption from the person.
Hi, Chris. Well, you've earned a star for keeping quiet hands nice and in your lap, and you've also earned a star for making good eye contact earlier. Now, for every sentence you read, you're going to work towards getting your reading glasses. But what I'm working for is the very thing that's going to help me get through this task. You know what? I might just take away one of these stars. You're in the red zone right now. I'm going to sit here and wait till you get in the green zone. Hi, Chris. Well, you've earned a star for keeping quiet hands nice and in your lap, and you've also earned a star for making good eye contact earlier. Now, for every sentence you read, you're going to work towards getting your reading glasses.
And this is the caption under
But
this
what I'm
post.
working
He
for
says,
is the very
"This is an
thing
analogy,
that's going to
and the
help me get through this
concept is
task.
that sometimes
You know what?
kids have
I
to
might just take away
earn
one of these
the
stars.
very
You're in
thing
the red
they
zone
need
right now.
in order to
I'm going to
feel
sit here and wait till you
regulated."
get in the green zone.
So that was his
Hi, Chris. Well,
caption.
you've
I
earned a
also want
star
to
for
point
keeping
out
quiet
that,
hands nice and in your lap,
through
and you've
this
also
video,
earned a
you can
star
also see
for making
how
good eye
we
contact
might
earlier.
encourage
Now,
masking
for every
by
sentence you
forcing the kids
read,
to make
you're
eye
going to work
contact
towards
or to use
getting your
quiet
reading
hands,
glasses.
for example.
But what
in
I'm
order
working
to
for
earn,
is
like,
the
a
very
preferred
thing
activity or a
that's going to
preferred
help me
item.
get through this task.
That would be
You know what?
encouraging
I
masking.
might just take away one of these stars. You're in the red zone right now.
Okay, now I want to talk about, are you encouraging masking in play situations? So when autistic children are repeatedly told that their natural play is incorrect, they may begin to mask and imitate neurotypical play to please adults at the expense of regulation and authenticity. So many adults unintentionally disrupt or discourage autistic play by redirecting a child to quote unquote play the right way. So you're not playing with that correctly. You need to do it this way. Or pushing pretend play before the child is interested in pretend play or before they are ready. Another one is interpreting repetitive play as wrong, unproductive, or a problem to fix when it's not. And then also prioritizing neurotypical social play milestones over authentic engagement. So the next question I want you guys to think about, is to identify one classroom rule or practice that might unintentionally promote masking. If you want, you can let we can discuss alternatives, or you can discuss alternatives with your colleagues, and what you could do instead. Okay, had a second to think about that. Okay, so now let's talk about some things that we can do instead, um, instead of masking. So we can normalize differences. We can model and verbalize acceptance. Some kids like to move when they think, and that's okay. I think it's important to start with this from a very young age, so that they are used to it. They're used to everybody processes information differently. People need fidget toys. People use a wobble cushion. People pace back and forth at the back of class. Um, I think in normalizing it, making it a part of just the way it is at school. This is the way it is in my classroom, and then it just becomes kind of different, normal and different, and everybody is different, and teaches acceptance. Um, it's never too late, I think, to start this. Even for older kids, it's good to start having those conversations. You can provide regulation choices. Would they like headphones? Would they like movement breaks? Would they like fidgets? Will that be helpful for them? The next one is to respect communication preferences. Use visuals, use gestures, use alternative communication, encourage quiet time if needed. Um, Redefine participation to be inclusive. Um, Not everybody participates in the same way. Not everybody is expected to participate in the same way, as far as answering questions in class, say, or sitting at circle time, or whatever. Everybody's different. Everybody has different expectations. Everybody has different needs. So redefine what participation might look like for some individuals. Observe energy use, not just behavior. So if you had an assembly earlier that day, uh, was it the child using a lot of their energy to focus and to listen? They may then need more of a break, or um, some time to redirect how they're feeling, because it don't just look at the behavior. Like, it's not just, oh, they're being a bad kid. It's, wow, they're feeling really overwhelmed right now. um, and that can reframe things as well. Collaborate with the student. Ask what helps or what drains them. They can hopefully start to understand their body, and start to recognize how they feel and how these things affect them over time. It doesn't happen right away, but continuing to ask, continuing to try, and encourage that, is helpful. And then prioritize psychological safety over compliance. Just because they are complying doesn't mean that they are regulated. It doesn't mean that they are happy. It means that they are masking sometimes, which is not what we want. Okay, what can we do instead? And this is specifically for play. So we can join the child's play respectfully. Um, like, if they are lining up objects, you can line up objects beside them. You can comment without changing. So you could say, oh, wow, you lined up all the blue ones. The next one is to offer materials that support their interests, even if they pick the same toy day after day after day. That's okay. They don't need to learn. They don't need to change their toy every day. They can pick the same one if that's what they want. Allow sensory play without the pressure to pretend. Affirm their play style as valid, and don't force them to play with other children. This is this is something that we do hear often enough, when we're at schools, is that sometimes teachers will say that, can you help me with this child? They really need to learn to play. They really need to learn to play with other kids. they're not being social, and they don't need to learn that if they don't want to. Some kids are completely happy playing alongside others, even if they seem to be on their own, they they're happy with that type of play. We don't need to change that. Um, if they ask, that's completely different, and you can say to them, do you want to play with other kids? And then you can facilitate that if they do, because they might need some help in that area because they're not quite sure, how to approach the group and how to ask, hey, can I play with you guys? So as the teacher, or the clinician, you can help them learn those skills in an authentic way. This approach reduces masking and builds a genuine connection. Excuse me. Okay. Um, so I do want to talk about the impacts of stimming before we go on. Stimming can have an adverse physical, emotional, or social impact on some individuals, including those with autism. Uh, for example, distracting people from their schoolwork or their jobs, and themselves as well. It could be distracting for themselves. It may prevent an autistic person from interacting with others. They may be excluded from the classroom, the workplace, and public spaces. It may be distracting, frightening, or upsetting to others, such as friends, classmates, colleagues, or family members who do not understand. It can garner negative attention or cause autistic people to be stigmatized and excluded. Trying to stop their stimming is unpleasant for autistic people because it can make them feel uncomfortable when they cannot stim. And people with autism are often encouraged to hide or mask their stimming behavior so that they can fit in. Uh, so those without autism should instead make a space for it. Teach acceptance in the classroom by discussing the differences. Uh, we can accept the behavior and work within it. For example, like I can give you a few examples of what I've done with some of my clients. Um, so I have a little boy he's 10 years old, and last week he came in. He was quite upset. He had a conversation with his mom, and he was unhappy with what she had told him. So he wasn't feeling very talkative that day. Now, if I would have, it's speech therapy, we do we do a lot of talking. But if I would have pushed him and you know made us get the work done, kind of thing, like it's important, we have to get the work done. If I would have pushed and pushed, it would have been a very unproductive session. So instead, I let him take a few minutes, pick his most favorite toy at the moment, and sit with that for a few minutes at the beginning of the session. And then, so he did. He set up this whole kind of play routine that he's been doing with these toys. And part of it was on the table where we were doing our work, and part of it was on the floor, sort of off to the side. And so I said, "Okay, you ready? Let's do this next activity." And he was like, "Yeah, yeah, okay." But I could tell that he didn't want to be pulled away from the toy, A, and B, he wasn't quite ready. So I just took whatever we were doing and I turned toward him. And he stayed on the floor, with the toy beside him, and he did what I was asking from him, and he did it. He did it right there, sitting on the table on the floor. I used the tiny chair beside me as a little table, so he could see the papers that we were working on. Um, and it was easy. It was quick. We did it. If I made him come back to the table, if I said, no, we have to get our work done, we have to come back to it would have been very unproductive. He would have been dysregulated. He would have been unhappy. And we wouldn't have gotten anywhere. And that was, an easy fix for us at the time. So that's one example, I guess, of a way that, that I can kind of just go for it, go with it. The next one, that one's not quite a stimming example, but it is a way to, not force them to comply with what I wanted them to do. I do have another stimming example. So this one is a little boy that I saw. He was about 6 or 7 years old, and his most favorite thing to do was vocal stimming, which was reciting lines from books, reciting lines from TV. He would do it in a high pitched voice. He would do it in a low pitched voice. He would um, do it with toys, and he would, make them run in front of his face and do the voices and do the noises. And he did it constantly. He did it when he was happy. He did it when he was sad. He did it when he first came into the clinic. He did it when he came into the room. He did it all the time. It was his most favorite thing to do, which is fine, as long as it's not disrupting other people, because this can be difficult in a classroom situation if other kids are trying to do a test, or if other kids are doing silent reading, and he is vocal stimming. So this is something we talked about in our sessions together. We talked about, hey, I know this is your favorite activity. I know you love it. Um, and when do you think is a good time to do it? When do you think is a time that we can maybe wait and not do it? And we came up with these times, like, okay, it's not good to do it during class time when the teacher's teaching. It's not good to do it when the classroom is doing an assignment or a test. It is good to do it. Excuse me. It is good to do it, when on break time. It's good to do it at recess time. It's good to do it when I'm in the car. It's good to do it when I'm at home. And so we came up with all of these alternatives. During our session time, I would also say, like, 'cause sometimes, over time, he was able to just, almost turn it off, like, not use vocal stimming when we were doing some activities. Not all the time, because there were some days when he was probably feeling a bit more like he wanted to do it because he loved it, or feeling a bit more dysregulated and needing to do it. So I would say, like, hey, do you think you can wait about 10 more minutes until we get all of this activity done, and then we'll have a break time, so then you can do some vocal stimming then. And he was like, yeah, cool, most of the time. And this is something that teachers can do at school. It's not going to happen right away. It's something that, because he would still need reminding and still need reminding, and over time it can be learned to try to control it a little bit more. Which brings me to another student that I have, another client that I have. He is older. He's about 15, and he recently came to see me for speech therapy. He was getting speech therapy, I think, from a very young age. Excuse me, in his home country. So he has had, I think, speech therapy, occupational therapy before moving to Cayman. So he's older. He's 15, and he sits at the table with me. We do our activities. When we change activities, he will get up out of the chair and he will go into, like, walk to the corner quickly and jump, or stomp his feet, and then he will walk to another corner and do the same thing, and then he comes back to the chair. He comes back to his chair and to the next activity that we're getting ready to do. It's not disruptive at all. It doesn't affect our sessions at all. And so, I mean, we don't talk about it. We don't even address it. It's just something that he needs to do. Maybe when he was younger, similar to my last example, maybe when he was younger, the clinicians or the teachers or his parents had, like, talked to him about it and said, like, hey, can you wait 10 more minutes and then we'll have a break? You can do some movement. And if he says no, then, okay, great, let's have a break now then. And because another way is to possibly teach these kids to, a body awareness and becoming aware of their body, and when is a good, like, asking for a break. Oh, I need a break right now. Can I have a break? And then they can, spin around in circles, do some walking, jumping if they need to, whatever they like to do, um, to help regulate, to help them get ready for what's coming next. So those are just a few examples, of how I try to, encourage the children to do whatever they need to do to help them, regulate and to help them complete their work. So moving on to the next slide, which are some of the things that I may have talked about in my examples, which is managing stimming. So the first thing is to remove triggers and stressors, stresses. We sort of need to become detectives, and we need to find out why are they stimming? Is it because they really, really enjoy it? Like my one child. Is it because they need that regulation? Is it because of a myriad of reasons? There could be many, many reasons. But if we can get to the reasons behind it, then we can, excuse me, then we can sometimes get in front of it. So that they can go for longer periods without it, or they can complete the work that's in front of them before needing a break. Not that needing a break is bad. It's absolutely not a bad thing. And I think being okay with that is also what we need to do as clinicians and teachers and parents. So removing the triggers and stresses, establishing familiar routines is helpful, finding alternative outlets, seeking professional support and advice can also be helpful. Excuse me. And the last two I think are the most important, which is avoiding the punishment of the behavior, and to let them, if we can, let them stim. So the next slide is going to be another video. So as soon as I go to the next slide, it's going to play the video. So I will let the video play, and then after I will I will read the caption from the video. Okay, so that is an Instagram post from St. Andrew's Autism Center, which is a nonprofit organization in Singapore, and they go by at SAACSG on Instagram. And I'm gonna now read the caption that they have on the post. So it says, "If you've ever met someone with autism, you might have noticed them engaging in repetitive movements, sounds, or actions. This self-stimulatory behavior is known as stimming, which is an essential part of understanding how persons with autism experience and interact with the world around them. Stimming looks different for everyone and is often misunderstood. It can be a joyful expression or a means of communicating feelings and needs, especially when words may not come easily. Inclusion begins with understanding. Instead of viewing stimming as something out of the ordinary, we can learn to accept it as a natural and important form of expression for persons with autism. In doing so, we move toward a more compassionate, empathetic, and inclusive society where persons with autism may lead dignified and meaningful lives." All right, so here are a couple questions I want you to think about. I'm going to give you a few minutes to just jot a few things down or to think about it. What's one thing you'll start doing differently tomorrow? And the next one is, how might our society and or school culture change if we valued authentic regulation over appearances? Okay. These questions and some of the questions I asked earlier throughout the presentation are things that you could maybe chat with colleagues about, maybe have group sharing and group discussions about these questions and how, if there are things that you can change, what might they be at school or in your sessions with your clients. So some takeaways from this presentation is that masking is an adaptive but harmful coping strategy. The goal is to create environments where autistic students can be authentic, and building mutual understanding, not conformity, supports long-term well-being. Okay, and I have a quote from Stuart Duncan. He says, "Autistic kids don't need to learn to act less autistic. We need to learn to meet them where they are." Okay, and as I said earlier, there's a handout that I have created with neurodiversity affirming resources, specifically for children with autism for not encouraging masking. I can send that to you. Please email me or email Jennifer, the owner, at info@kidsability.ky. And then I have a slide for questions. Please also feel free to email me directly if you do have any questions about anything that was discussed today. Again, my email is cynthia@kidsability.ky. And then I want to thank you. Thank you for taking the time to listen to this today. As I said earlier, I'm just quickly touching on this topic and bringing awareness to it. I do think I do know that there are many, many, many wonderful resources out there if you do want to look into it further, if you do want to educate yourself a little bit more and learn little bit more about it. I can send you the list of resources, because there are tons of really great things out there, and even my resource list isn't exhaustive. There's tons of stuff out there on this topic, and lots to learn. So thank you for coming today, and let me know if you do have any questions. I'm happy to chat more about it. And then the last slide here are the references. I can send that to you if you want it as well. So that will be it for today, but thank you so much for joining. See you again soon.